Yeah, it's on. Nice.
All right, cool.
Yeah, so I'm gonna shoot a question to you guys. I don't know if any of you had any experience with this. Recently, like yesterday, I was experiencing the cycles of mind, and experiencing the so-called down spiral cycle, and I noticed that even as hard as one can try to put correct practice, if it's not there, it didn't seem like it's possible to connect. So for example, what I'm trying to explain is that I don't think there's any control to the practice. You either connect the dots on the given breath, or in the given moment, or you don't connect the dots. And when you don't connect the dots, you're gonna suffer until you do connect the dots, and then you get yourself out of suffering. I don't think there's anyone who can meditate out of anything. It's just happening by itself. So the suffering is arising by itself, and you can say I don't really have any control over it, but that's a lie. You do have a control over it only when the dots click on. Do you know where I'm going? So I experienced this, like, it doesn't matter what I do. It's okay. I'll just suffer for a bit. It doesn't matter. I'll allow myself to suffer until I see it clearly, and then I see it clearly, and the suffering goes away. I think it goes back to like letting go, but I found it quite interesting that it doesn't matter how much I meditated, or how good my
Well, it does matter. That's the thing.
uh-huh.
The part that's missing is, yes, we do have old karma. That's one way you could look at it. We have been for how many years thinking unwholesome thoughts, and that's how the mind works. So those unwholesome thoughts will continue to arise. It's a habit. And when those arise, you can't magically snap your fingers and make them never arise again. But what we can do is every time we wake up to it, every time there is sati, we change the thought pattern. So that the amount you do meditate then does matter. So whenever you do have sati, that develops the new pattern of mind. And the next time where you feel like you don't have control or whatever, you'll be able to wake up to that quicker and change the mind from that victim's mentality of I don't have control to I've got this wired. And so we keep sort of like a switch, like the default state of the mind was unwholesome. And every time we remember, we switch it back to wholesome. But it'll slowly come back to unwholesome, and we switch it back because that's just was the inclination of the mind to the unwholesome. And now we're practicing switching it back whenever we remember. So in the sense, there is no me switching it back, but there is the skill of sati that is being developed. And that sati will happen more and more often as it's practiced more and more often, and as the benefits are seen more and more often.
Yeah, that's what I noticed. You put it like really precisely. I noticed that the habits sometimes tend to be it's too ingrained, as I think that even Dhammarato mentioned. We repeat them over and over and over and over again. So then we bring in this new thing we're trying to adjust to, and it can seem overwhelming, because you can even remember that this is like the correct way of practicing, but then the old pattern ways are still like, it's just too much. It feels like it's just bombarding, bum 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 bum. It doesn't really matter how good it is, but then if you just relax and settle yourself down, it settles by itself, like the dust settles by itself. If you stop moving around, right, around the room, you're just like dancing around, and the dust is flying everywhere. If you just stop, the dust settles by itself, and then you can see, and then you can remember to practice. That's what I noticed, and I found that like I've seen that a lot, but I've never seen it so clearly that there isn't any particular control until there is. So you cannot say there isn't a control, but there is a certain element of it, as you explained.
But when you're already having those thoughts of there isn't control, you can have that thought be a thought that triggers the control. You can have that thought of there isn't control or whatever be a thought that you can wake up with. So as soon as there is some sort of waking up, there might be some verbal thought of I shouldn't be feeling bad or something like that, sort of a rule repeated in the mind. But that's not waking up enough, because there's some wisdom there, but not wisdom enough to really dukkha-nirodha, right? It's just dukkha, knowing that there is dukkha, but we also have to take the minimal effort necessary to change the mind from that dukkha to dukkha-nirodha, to satisfaction.
Hey, Robert.
Hey, Robert.
We're in class.
Yeah, the background's from a book called Power versus Force by David Hawkins. I haven't read it, but I thought it looked really cool. It's like he has like a model of like stages of enlightenment, and I think he ranks like emotions from like most to least wholesome on there as well. I don't know the order they're in, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to read them, most of them. I've seen this before, but it never seen it in like percentage-wise, rate of happiness. I'm 53% happy right now.
At that point, you're dissatisfied.
Yeah,
if you're rating your happiness,
I'm
then
5%
there's
satisfied.
not happiness, there's dissatisfaction.
Can you even read it?
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
It's me. Oh, that's awesome. Mine's not high def enough to read, but it's like.
Hey, Scott.
Scott.
What's up, guys?
Hello? Yeah, Parker, I'm gonna go back to that. And as far as like even before I joined the Sangha or I joined any of the calls, the meditation was happening by itself. I'm not sure if like coming around Dhammarato and hearing him explain the anapanasati, is that like, I'm not sure if it did anything in a sense of me understanding meditation by itself, because I still see that part of like the suffering is already like the karma, like you already established all these bad habits or behaviors and habits, so there is still gonna be a sense of like whatever you want to call, if you want to call it dark night of the soul, or if you want to just call it suffering, it's still gonna come by. I feel like because
Not if you have the sati, not
it.
if you take the right effort.
Mm-hmm.
That's still sort of a victim's mentality of I can't control this. But you can control this, and right now you can control this. The idea that there's going to be a dark night of the soul is that there's going to be an unwholesome thought and I'm not going to wake up to it and there's going to be more unwholesome thoughts. But what we can control is as soon as the unwholesome thought arises, we can wake up to that and throw it out. And we don't have to get seduced by that unwholesome thought, that dukkha. We can instead change the mind. So yes, there will be unwholesome thoughts that arise. That's just the nature. That's the unwholesome karma that we have, if you want to use that language. But we can change that as soon as we wake up to it.
But it's not waking up to it, like, as I said, explain, like, until certain dots click and then you wake up to it. But what is that period until those dots click?
Well, the problem with the karma and stuff like that is that as like as a self, like as a body and a mind system, you have karma. But the good news is that that all that stuff is completely empty and transient. So what's really happening when you have sati is that you're realizing emptiness in that moment and escaping karma altogether. So like the prison of karma doesn't apply to like the real nature of things, like the real nature of reality. And that's what we're doing here. That's what enlightenment is letting go of delusion and illusions. So all the whole idea that like you're victim of your karma and conditioning is the illusion of self, and there is no self. It's all completely transient and empty. So like what's really happening when you go from unwholesome to wholesome is that the like the etch-a-sketch of your mind is being shaken up and wiped clean in that moment, and it just comes up fresh and new. Like you can say that, oh, I'm intentionally thinking wholesome thoughts, but like we all know what it's like to like think wholesome thought like on, and it's not actually like, it doesn't actually feel good, and it doesn't actually like change your mood. What's really happening is like the happiness is like producing better thoughts, but like the happiness is the emptiness realization. So it is actually profound. Like just one wholesome thought that changes your mood is a profound like dissolution of preconceived karmas and habitual tendencies and all that kind of stuff. You just have to remember to dissolve into emptiness more and more. But like dissolving into emptiness isn't relatable for people, so we tell them, oh, think wholesome thoughts. You see what I'm saying? But like the more you wipe the slate clean or realize the empty nature of reality, the more and more accessible this becomes intentionally to you, because you start to change your identity starts to change from a limited, localized, separate entity that's subject to all its limitations and stuff, to not a new identity, not like some kind of new spiritual identity, but you just remove the current identity. And then once you remove the current identity, anything's possible. Anything's possible. Like anything can happen. The reason why you feel limited and unsatisfied is because you have constricted reality to one circumstance and identified with it, the circumstance of I, me, and mine. And that's a very like limiting feeling. Like that's a very unsatisfactory way to live. But actually all you have to do is remove that limitation, and then things are just the way that they are, free and like flowing in all the descriptions that you might label it with. But even those don't even do it justice. Do you see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying. It really relates to what I'm gonna ask next. As far as like I see, removing me, we're able to remove me in certain aspects of our habits and certain behaviors where we already see them true, like easily. Like I see some addictions come up, I can see there's no me in there. I can see that's just like another thought. But there is some deeper ingrained like patterns I notice that I'm afraid. It's like it comes up to a level of fear of like letting go of those habits because everything else is unknown. So everything else is unknown is essentially the death of that old version. If that old version dies, then what is left? Like it constantly.
The thing that is missing is it always has been unknown. It's been a delusion thinking that these habits, this self here is going to persist, and by holding on to these things, I'm going to be safe from this unknown. But in fact, it always was unknown. That reality is impermanent. It is always changing. So by holding on to this, we're holding on to a delusion that this isn't unknown. I'm going to hold on to this delusion and somehow reality won't change. I'm not going to look at it for how it is. But once you look up and realize it's always changing, it's safe. There's no problems. And we realize it's safe by in every moment reminding ourselves that it's safe, that everything is okay, that I can handle this. Even though reality is changing, it's impermanent. I can handle this. And that's what needs to be changed in the thought that you're talking about, the thought of, I can't handle this old karma, that there is this old karma, and sometimes I'll wake up to it, sometimes I'm not. The idea is that when you're having that thought is the way you were describing it as of a victim, like that was somehow a bad thing. But if you can change that right now, you can still have that thought, but have it from a champion's point of view of, yes, there is karma. I don't have to be a victim of it, though. That it will arise. There will be unwholesome tendencies that arise, but I'll handle them. And I'll have sati for them and develop that champion's attitude because by developing that attitude, by thinking those thoughts, it will develop.
Yeah, and also another thing is that the fear comes from the familiarity with the dissatisfaction. So you're more you're so used to being miserable that it feels familiar, and somehow change is scary. So it's not that you don't want it to go away completely. Actually, you do. It's just that you don't know you don't know anything other than that, except for some momentary glimpses. So it's scary because like imagine you've been living in like a really primitive house like your entire life, and then using like really primitive like technologies, and someone comes from the future and shows you some amazing new thing that will make your life completely better and easier, but you don't quite understand it, and it seems like daunting and like super complicated and like a little bit overwhelming, but actually it's a lot better than your current circumstance. So the fear comes from the familiarity with the dissatisfaction, and then once you realize that dissatisfaction is dissatisfaction, seeing dukkha as dukkha, then you start to lose the fear of the cessation of dukkha, or the cessation of dissatisfaction. Because even though the cessation of dissatisfaction may be the cessation of your sense of self and everything you've been thinking about yourself and everything you took yourself to be, it's still a lot better than the prison. And that brings me to my next point, is that you're in the prison of the person as much as you want to be. So people suffer not because they've just been doomed to that fate, but because they're actually enjoying being a person. So so people like to be a person, people like to play their character, and people like to identify with it. And at first it's cute, like it's cute to be me. It's cute. But then once it like rears its ugly head, at a certain point it becomes unbearable. And that's when you become a truth seeker. Where at the point being me is unbearable. And then you start to look at how things actually are. And you outgrow this really constricting attachment to be this specific body and this specific mind that's separate and individual.
Exactly.
It feels like there's a lot of safety, like a lot of it's just like a safety mechanism, because as Parker and you, Scott, said, it's a lot of unknown is scary to us, because we've been trained to not to go into unknown since day one, like to always go into known. You know what you're gonna do in the future, you know that you're gonna eat the next meal, you know, just do what you know. But that uncertainty and unsafe feeling leaves a person clinging to the same patterns and habits. And I can see these contractions, and I can see them how miserable they can make me by contracting in interactions with other people, or in just being by myself in general. There's a lot of like these contractions happening, and each time they're happening, I can see them super clearly and how much dissatisfaction they're bringing to me. Yet like we continue.
So in that moment, change it.
Yes.
In that moment, remember. And another story that might be helpful is that imagine you're on the second floor of a house and you're sitting there and you hear something fall or you hear just a noise downstairs and your mind immediately thinks, oh, there's a robber in the house. And so you curl up, run into your closet and curl up and contract, right? That's one way of handling it. But we're sitting there. There is an illusory safety to that. If I'm safe in my closet all curled up. But if you would get up and handle it like a champion and go downstairs and see, oh, it was just a book that fell off the bookcase. Everything is safe. That the scariness of it is not actually real. That if we look up and get up and investigate, you'll be able to handle it.
What I keep seeing is that, like, the old patterns, as I was explaining, it before, if I don't see, if I don't get myself relaxed, if I'm not relaxed, I cannot see any of these, and that's fine. And as soon as I let the dust settle and I can see clearly that all of this is empty and I'm just generating all this dissatisfaction with myself, everything's fine. But what I wanted to say,
no, but that's exactly the problem, is that you believe that you're generating the dissatisfaction. So the person who's generating the dissatisfaction isn't you. So
that's my point. I see that there is no me in there. So the person who's generating satisfaction and dissatisfaction, none of them exist. None of that is just another thing. It's just whole another empty thing. Person who's doing that satisfaction and person who's doing dissatisfaction, they're both empty. And the choice is there.
The dissatisfaction is the person, the doing of the person. The satisfaction is the absence of the person. No one is doing the satisfaction.
But sometimes it feels like someone's doing this satisfaction if I go into like meditation, if I let meditation go by itself, like I used to do, it takes care of itself naturally. But recently I've been trying to apply more of like the knowledge that I gained from Sangha and gained from Dhamma, and it feels a bit like hectic sometimes.
So if you're applying it well and becoming satisfied, the identification with the person sort of gets taken over by the satisfaction and disappears into it. And then once you're satisfied, at that moment, you're no longer identifying to be a limited person. Dissatisfaction always has a cause and a condition. Satisfaction is, you can't really pin it down. You can't really say what it is. You can say what it's not. You can just say it's dukkha-nirodha. It's the cessation of dukkha, but you can't, like, that's what nirvana means. That's what nirvana means. It's blowing out of the candle. So it's the extinguishing of the flame of desire, not the replacing of some kind of new ground of being, like some kind of magical consciousness or something like that. So satisfaction isn't a thing. It's the absence of dissatisfaction. It's the absence of the person. No one does satisfaction. Only you could say that you take an effort to end dissatisfaction. But satisfaction itself is personless. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something that came to me a while ago, is that satisfaction doesn't take any effort to like maintain itself. It kind of just has its own momentum, like inherently. And because like effort is a form of dukkha, so satisfaction is kind of effortless. So that helped me kind of connect that insight that like satisfaction isn't something we do when it kind of feels like we're like at the very least creating conditions for it to arise on its own. I don't know if that's useful at all, but that's something that you could try investigating and noticing, and that can help that insight, I guess, make sense.
Yes, when we're satisfied, there's no effort. But once, if we have the idea that there will never be any effort, eventually we'll slip back into dukkha and be suffering. So there is effort, but once you're satisfied and wholesome, that's the only effort that is needed. Then we might slip back into unwholesome, and then there is effort needed. The minimal effort needed to get back into wholesome. So when you're meditating, Carl, and there's the thought of this is hectic, that would be an unwholesome thought, that there is some me who is being overwhelmed by all of this. But the practice is simple. There's nothing to be overwhelmed by. There's a lot of numbers and stuff, but really just coming back to dukkha-nirodha, that we don't need to understand all of this stuff right now. That all we need to know is to change the mind from unwholesome to wholesome, and then we're good. And the mind will go back, oh, this is hectic though. Then we change it again. Everything's okay, no problem here. And that's all that needs to be done. And then that's the satisfaction that, like, effort, or Robert talked about, it's effortless at that point.
Yeah, I'd also add something Parker said, which is sometimes like the instruction to just be satisfied can seem like very dismissive, and like it's not really giving like due like weight to the problem you're describing. But I think part of that is quite helpful, because if you do take a really like blunt instruction, like just be satisfied like anyway, even though it's hectic, and you just use that same instruction, a lot of like these like issues that we have, like they turn out to be kind of just bigger deals than they really were. Like there was a lot of ego kind of like BS like added on top, like blowing them up out of proportion, and then we can see that after we become satisfied, and it can kind of just like, it's kind of like brutal because it hurts a little bit to have something you thought was really important turn out to be like not important. But I feel like the more it kind of hurts and the more you get hit with those like, wow, that was actually just complete bullshit, like, and those moments of just like, aha, that was all bullshit, and like they're kind of soul crushing. But like the bigger they are, I feel like the more it's like the more damage it does to like the ego, kind of like the more you see how full of shit you are.
It goes back. It
Painful.
goes back to me to like the bog and the log. Like it's what I can see from the whole situation is the settling of the dust, because it's a reminder of like actually give yourself time in seclusion, because a lot of this is happening out there in the world. Like if I'm sitting on my couch by myself, I don't really have that much dukkha going on most of the time, because I can be observant and I can smash it anytime I see it. But out there living in the world, dealing with people, working jobs, like managing things, it can build up, and then you allow it to build up and you take it home, and you still continue to participate in that past, and then you fell into a little rabbit hole, and then you keep trying to apply the same practice when you're in the rabbit hole, when you should just let the dust settle. That's what I noticed, I think, from all of this is the practice can seem too hectic if you haven't let the relaxation come in first, because I keep seeing this thing is, if I don't allow myself to settle down, to get relaxed, then the practice is useless. You're just gonna create more dissatisfaction with myself, because you're gonna, oh, I can't do this, oh, this is too much, oh.
Well, it sounds like what you're talking about by settling down and relaxing is the practice.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like that at that point, right? Because the practice is to be satisfied, and you're not satisfied. That's what we assume. Oh, I want to be satisfied most of the time.
But that's almost a rule, right? You should be satisfied. You're not doing enough right now, but you're seeing that clearly. That's not the practice. The practice is just really settling down, letting the dust settle, relaxing. Nibbana, cool off.
That's the point of the breathing meditation, or the anapanasati, is that it actually physically relaxes you. So yeah, you're not going to be able to do you're not going to be able, if you're in a agitated state and you're just trying to forcefully change your thoughts from unwholesome to wholesome, actually what's happening is just more unwholesome thoughts, because you're in a state of resistance and acceptance with the way things are. And wholesome is always like an integrating or coming into the moment and the peace of just being satisfied with how things are. So if you're not, so it's kind of like a little mind fuck. Like if you're trying to become satisfied with the way things are because you're not satisfied with the way things are, it doesn't work. So you have to relax. That's why the suttas say like breathing in long. He trains thus: breathing in, aware of the body. Breathing in long, he's aware. He's breathing in long, and he's aware of the body. And then like the next step is breathing in. He relaxes the body, or the translation says tranquilizing bodily formations. I think it's kind of fucking dope, but like Dhammarato always says like, oh, it's a terrible mistranslation. Tranquilize bodily formations. Like that sounds freaking amazing to me. Like I like so if you can tranquilize so you breathe in, take some deep breaths, you relax, you become aware of your body, come into your senses, start to relax your body, relax any tensions that are showing up, and then you could really do the practice.
Yes, we like to the mind when we realize we're in the wholesome, it oftentimes goes to, you stupid idiot, you're in the unwholesome. You should be practicing meditation. What are you doing? But in fact, that's just another unwholesome thought. That really waking up would be letting go of that completely, what Scott was talking about, and just relaxing.
A lot of punishment comes from not being able to do it on the spot a lot of times. It can be really self-punishing that we can start comparing ourselves when we're able to practice successfully in seclusion, but then we go out in the world, and then sometimes we're able to practice there as well, but a lot of times we get hit with like these reality situations, so-called, and then the practice goes out the window, and then you spiral down, and then you get back into the seclusion again, and you calm yourself down, and you can see, oh yeah, I just allowed myself to really, really go down that path once again. And then the punishment can also creep in, punishing yourself, saying, oh, but I'm always so relaxed when I'm by myself. I should go live in a cave, or I should go live with other monks, right? That's where these thoughts come by, because we constantly compare ourselves, how we're out in the world and how we're on a pillow or at home or chilling by ourselves. So that can also add an extra layer of dukkha, as I noticed.
All you have to do is do your best. So the only time you can practice is when you remember to practice. So if you're become involved and distracted in the world, there's nothing you can do about it because you're not remembering. But as soon as you remember, instead of going back into dukkha by being like, oh fuck, I was in dukkha, that's just more dukkha. So you just literally, like, you simplify it. You just do your best. You do the practice when you remember to do it, and when you don't remember to do it, there's literally nothing that you could have done about that. There's like
more importantly, there's nothing that you can do right now about that past person who got into dukkha. And the delusion is that if you beat yourself up, there will be some change, because that's what we have done in the past. When we misbehaved, we were yelled at, as if that yelling at would change our past behavior. But really, what we're learning now is it's more skillful to nurture rather than to be critical. That if you really want to change a behavior, treat yourself like a child. Treat yourself like your best friend, right? Treat yourself like a friend, like a baby, like nurturing thoughts rather than critical. Not in a demeaning way, but really working with yourself and being friends with yourself. And I see you, darkness, my old friend, that we're taking a nurturing attitude rather than that critical attitude of you should have been meditating and you're bad because you didn't.
Also, once I'm gonna just use I'm at work, and I can see that I should give myself a break, and I can see that the practice should come in that, not should, that's a bad word. The practice I can allow the practice to come in at that point, but it's much harder to do like the bog and the log technique, where you allow yourself to rest when you're at work than when you're at home. And that in that precise moment, it feels like you need a break. So in the worldly matters, you can't just take up and leave your fucking job. You can, but there's going to be certain circumstances that are going to come about if you do that. But there can also
but you may be able to go to the bathroom for 5 minutes and take some nice deep breaths there.
That's true. You can go to the bathroom sometimes, like if that's not going to impact again other people around you. If you're again going to contract and say, oh, I can't do that because there's people around, even though you should prioritize your own
Not
well.
should, but can. You have the opportunity to relax. That those thoughts of should or I have to, still, they're not enough to really bring in that wholesome thinking. That when there's a thought of I should be meditating, I should be relaxing right now, change that from I should to I can relax right now. No matter what I'm doing, I can relax and do it wholesomely and put in my full attention to this and really enjoy the work.
Yeah. Also, don't forget, like, it's not about perfectly being able to relax in every situation. It's about just like doing your best. So, yeah, you're going to become agitated at work, and things are going to fuck with you, and like you're going to become pissed off. All you have to do is do your best. That's it. Like relax as much as you can, and then you'll know at the end of the day you did your best. And the more and more you relax in your meditation out of work, the more and more it will start to overflow into every aspect of your life. So it's not about, oh shit, here's a part of my life where it wasn't perfect, and then when you're in it, recognizing, oh, I'm not doing it right now. No, all you have to do is do your best. And like it does, that continual like take it easy mentality on yourself, and then realize that that limited person who becomes angry and mad actually isn't you anyways. It will start to like permeate every aspect of your life. And then these work issues will become, life is kind of magical. Like they'll find a way to work themselves out. Like things will just start to go better, and like things will be good. And then when they go bad, well, that's no big deal either, because you're so relaxed and you have such a profound peace in the background.
They're not work issues anymore, they're work toys. Right?
Yeah.
We get to play with them. It's not important anymore. It's not like myself is at stake, like Scott was talking about earlier. The I, me, or mine is in danger if I don't figure out this issue. It's a toy. It's something to do. It's just a toy to play with.
I can see a lot of like in those moments, like a lot of comparison going on, because a lot of times, even at work, I'm able to maintain a really good state, and then when you're not, you really punish yourself. You really tell yourself, "Oh, look, comparing your previous results, etc., etc. All the things that you know is gonna lead to more dukkha. You're starting to participate in that behavior." So a lot of times I think like the streaks of like really good meditation days can throw you off so easily once you have a little slip, and you really start punishing yourself even more, instead of, as Scott said, just do your best in that particular moment and allow yourself just to be. Even with a slip, you allow yourself to be that moment. Yes.
Yeah, because you've developed a new identity of I am a good meditator. I am an advanced. So you have some good meditations because you've let go of your identity, and then now you've created a new identity that takes ownership of those good meditations. Like, oh, I can always be happy in any situation now, because that's a new person.
I'll never be unhappy again.
That's
because I wasn't exactly.
And then that's doomed for dukkha, because that's a recipe for disaster. Because reality is always changing. Any circumstance can come your way. The insight to just do your best in any particular circumstance, and if it's going really well, great, enjoy. But don't make it a new person out of it. Like, don't take ownership of a good meditation. You take ownership of, as soon as you take ownership of it, actually you're not enjoying it anymore. It's gone.
Yeah, I can see that
Heavy
creating
now.
the me in that moment is already creating the, as you said, the good meditator identity. It comes on because you've already been creating, probably from the morning, something else. You already you were already not noticing, at least I was not noticing, creating some other dukkha, and then this one big thing that I was looking, that this one particular state you put so much importance on is now gone. So now you're starting to generate on that as well. You're looking what's going wrong in your life at that particular moment. So you're creating, the me is creating all the dissatisfaction as it used to, and it's using even your new experiences as creating dissatisfaction with yourself. It's using something that you've been love doing, like you love feeling good, you love feeling good in practice, and it's using it against you. It's trying to use that as a weapon against you. That's one thing I noticed.
It as soon as you become less interested in the particulars and the mechanism and the process of relaxation, and you become more interested in the actual experience of it, then you open the possibility for things to change in an instant. So it takes a meditator a long time to do meditation, because that meditator envisions this whole process of meditating. Meditator envisions this whole process of, oh, okay, let me do the practice. Okay, what's the practice? Anapanasati, or thinking wholesome thoughts, and then I'll do all those things, and then maybe eventually it'll help me. But if you don't have any of that conceptual overlay onto your actual experience, things can there's immediate relief in that moment, immediate grace. To get all Christian about it, it's just like immediate relief, because you recognize that none of the good or bad results of the past have had anything to do with you as a self doing them. So you just let go. You let go in this moment completely, and not as someone letting go. Letting go is just the natural outcome of realizing that none of that is controllable. Like, you can't control any of it. And then that's an understanding that isn't a practice. So if it doesn't, if you can't understand that, then you can practice. So there's different avenues, right? You're not limited to like one way of dukkha-nirodha. There's immediate, quick ways of dukkha-nirodha, or there's progressive, practicey ways of dukkha-nirodha. But ultimately, all of the ways of dukkha-nirodha are the same, and there's no self behind it. It's just, where are you at in that specific moment? What resonates with you? What can you understand? Like, again, what can you just do your best at? And then you realize that it doesn't have to fit into one concept of how it should go every time. Actually, you can't really do each moment of dukkha-nirodha is unpredictable. It's spontaneous. If you could predict it, then it wouldn't be dukkha-nirodha. It just happens, and it happens like it just comes over you. And how does it come over you? there's a ton of different ways it can. So there's always possibilities. Like there's always a new way to do it. Like there's always different. You're never doomed to your circumstance. You're like, oh, I'm trying this and it didn't work. You're not doomed to that, because the way that the practice works, it takes on a new relative like form that wasn't currently what you've been conceptualizing the practice to be. So like again, this circles back to not developing I'm an advanced meditator identity, because you may have been doing something that's worked like perfectly, and you develop an identity around that and a conceptual framework around that, and you project it into the future as like some sort of skill set that you can always do. And when it doesn't work, then you're fucked, right? Like, oh, like, and then you, because of all of this stuff that you've created and identified with. So it works, but not as a meditator. Does that make sense? It works as an experience, not as a person who's meditating.
Yeah, and that's I think I started the call with that was my initial question. If any of the people in the Sangha experienced this, as I didn't do my meditation practice originally. I didn't really do that much meditation when I first stumbled upon myself. It was really snappy and quick for me to get on these things. And I noticed that once I started putting rules, once I started listening a bit more about meditation, people talk about it, I started putting all these rules, all these words, all these different kind of things that I started playing around with. And I noticed that, oh, it's all same thing in essence, but what I called is my own method. We all have our own method at that current moment, right? It's your own method at that point. You shouldn't be trying to pinpoint it to a particular formula and try to replicate it every time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Exactly. That's a great realization, and come back to that whenever you remember, rather than I'm going to practice anapanasati or whatever it may be, that these are all just teaching the same thing. They're all just trying to get you to relax. And like you were saying, they all overlap, and just come to that overlapping of just letting go, just relaxing, just no problems. That's all that the practice is.
Yeah, like when Dhammarato gives you a practice, he's saying it how he finds it most, like he's like saying it the most efficient way he can possibly say it, but he's trying to point to an actual experience of it rather than the formula that he's giving you. And the actual experience of it is the joy that you feel that communicates itself through conversation. Like the actual practice is the happiness. The actual practice is the relief. The actual practice is the joy. Not do this, this, and that. But do this, this, and that is the best translation that we have of the happiness. So it's the best shot at translating it. But really, the words and the practices and the concepts are, again, the finger pointing to the moon. It's not the moon. The moon is the experience of relief. The moon is the experience of relaxation and tranquility. The moon is the experience of liberation or freedom from suffering. The moon is not do this, this, and that. Do this and this and that is the finger that's pointing at the moon.
Yeah, that's the exact quote that came to my mind as well. Yeah. Look at the moon, not the finger pointing at the moon.
Or the finger serves its purpose.
Yes.
The finger is important. You didn't know the moon was there until you had someone pointed their finger at it. So the finger is equally important. But trying to find the moon in the finger will just
Some water as well.
What do you guys think about suffering in subtle unconscious ways? How would you investigate for those without inadvertently producing more dukkha? Sometimes I find sort of any action where I'm doing something with an intention, it's like having an intention is like dukkha-laden in some sense. Like anything I try to do intentionally feels like there's some dukkha there.
Well, there is no unconscious in the sense that something you can't access. There is just unconscious in the sense that you're not looking and there's dukkha happening. So wake up, see right now, is this dukkha or is this wholesome? And we just look at what's happening right now. That we can get into thoughts of, is this thing going to happen in the future because of this or whatever? And our investigation of the intention can almost be a slamming and crushing of the intention, and we're not actually looking anymore, right? It's creating rules and stuff. So what we need to do is just investigate. And it's not some deep investigation. It's just looking at, how does this make me feel right now? Is this satisfactory? Is this dissatisfactory right now? Because we can't know the future. And if we're scared of it, and if we're thinking too much about it, we'll just get lost in doubt. So we can curiously investigate with joy, but that's all that can be done. Once the intention is investigated, just put it down. And when there's the idea of subconscious unwholesome thoughts, that's kind of something you don't have control of. Like, you can't change the mind. So come back and realize right now everything's okay. And then less and less will be subconscious, because the more we're looking, the more we're waking up. The less is in the background per se, because it was only in the background because we weren't paying attention to it.
I love that concept of the subconscious. Because like that just makes me think, like, where's the evidence?
Oh, I have evidence.
No, but no, like,
I told you before.
If you can have a subconscious, how would you be able to experience it if it wasn't a conscious experience, right? So what the subconscious is kind of like a dancing banana man behind the moon. Like, you could say, oh yeah, it's there. But who has ever experienced the subconscious if not through a conscious experience? How does that make sense?
Sorry, you froze for me and I missed all that. But I was gonna say, like, sometimes, like, you know, if you relax very deeply, there will be tension in the body that you didn't know was stored there, that'll just like suddenly be let go of, and it'll be this really pleasant thing.
And that's all there is to do. That we have the idea after that there's some extra subconscious thing that I need to find out too, but it's only just when you wake up to it.
Can I answer real quick? I agree with you, Parker, but I'm just talking about the whole conscious subconscious thing. So in that moment when you say you start to experience tension relax that you weren't aware of, you're believing that there was tension that was there that you weren't aware of. You're creating a belief with no evidence that you were subconsciously experiencing it based on a conscious experience. So you consciously experience the relaxation of tension, and then you extrapolate and infer that there was a subconscious experience that you didn't have access to, when it was just conscious experience after conscious experience. And you construct some sort of thing that's there that you never experienced.
Yes, there's the waking up to the tension in the body. There's the relaxing of the tension in the body, and then there's the thought of, I was tense in the past and there might be more tension, where you can't know that. That wasn't conscious.
What I'm saying is that if you're not aware of tension in the body, there is no tension in the body.
Yes.
There's only what you're aware of. So if you're distracted and doing something, like you're really like you're really into like the current thing you're doing, like you're really constant, like you're really absorbed into an activity, you're playing video games or something, and you're not experiencing the sensations of tension, there is no sensations of tensions there. There's just what you're experiencing. And then if a sensation of tension comes up, then that's a sensation of tension that you're experiencing. But you can't honestly say that there is tension that you're not experiencing. That's an inference. And there's no evidence. There's no experiential evidence of it. So the only tension that you need to relax is a tension that you're consciously experiencing. There is no subconscious tension. There is only experiential tension.
You tend to cling to the tension that you notice that you notice at the present moment that there is a tension, and then you tell yourself, "Oh shit, I was tensed all this time. Where else is the tension?" And then you really start looking for the tension, and you will create more tension in your body as you're reminding yourself, "Oh, there's tension in my body." You're actually generating that tension as you're telling yourself, "Oh, there's tension in my body." The
So
thought
a
itself is
practical thing to do then would be, instead of having the idea of subconscious tension, is waking up and actually looking at the body. Is there tension anywhere else in the body? If there is, just relax it. And then there's no other problems. That right now I've relaxed, and that's step 3 of Anapanasati, relaxing the bodily formations. Like Scott was talking about, every time we wake up to it, we just relax the body. And it's not some conscious thing that we fear. It's a practical thing that whenever we wake up to the body and feel the body, and within the senses of the touching senses of the body, we'd relax it.
I was trying to point to the experience of awareness, the experience of being aware of the body and the world itself has no tensions or sensations. It's completely empty. So if you're aware of something and you're not aware of anything else, there's no tension. So if you become aware of tension, then there is tension. But the awareness is empty of tension. That's why you can relax the tension. That's the point I'm making. You become aware of tension and you're able to relax the tension because the awareness of the tension is not tense. Otherwise, if you yourself were tensed, you wouldn't be able to relax tension. Does that make sense? So,
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to point to is that there's no tension other than the tension that you're currently experiencing. If there's a tension here, then you could relax that. If there's tension there, you could relax that. But there's no tension other than the current experience of the tension.
Yes, and that's to make the point of not beating yourself up of some imaginary tension, right? That it's still wise to relax the body. It's not about ignoring the body completely and saying that there is no tension, we're not focusing on it, because relaxing the body is wise. A tense body often can result in where tension in the body relaxes, the mind and body work together. That if the body's really tense, the mind will likely be somewhat tense. So the body can also be a good anchor to come back to and just investigate. And like Scott's talking about, we're only investigating when we're actually feeling the body, when the mind moment is actually of the tense body. It's not you're playing the video game and then there's a thought my body's tense. Right then it's there is not the tension, there's not the observation of the tension. It's only when the mind actually observes the body that you can relax it.
But so if your body is tense, you are experiencing that tension consciously, just because, like, let's say I'm looking at that lamp over there, and in my peripheral vision there's a unfocused cup. Like there's an unfocused thing in my peripheral vision, but I'm looking at the lamp. I'm still consciously experiencing the unfocused cup. It's not a subconscious experience. That's the same way I'm trying to say, if your body is tense, you are still experiencing that tension. Just because it's not the center of your attention doesn't mean you aren't consciously experiencing it. But what I'm saying is, if it's not even in the realm of your entire conscious experience, focused or unfocused, it's not there at all. So yes, there could be tensions in the body that you aren't currently focused on, but you're actually still consciously experiencing them. And then all you're doing is guiding the attention towards them. It doesn't mean that they weren't in the periphery of your experience. And actually, if they're not in the periphery of your experience, that's relaxation. That's a relaxed body. So you experience dukkha because you are consciously experiencing tension, whether it's you're focusing on it or not focusing on it. If you're not consciously experiencing tension, there's no dukkha there. It's relaxation. It's emptiness. So it's good you bring that up, Parker, because I wasn't trying to say that, if you're focused on something, then that means there's no tension there at all. You could be focused on something and peripherally be experiencing tension.
Completely agree. That helps clarify it for my understanding what you're saying.
Yeah. The same way vision, like you could be focused on, you're still seeing other stuff. You're just not, it's just not the center of the attention. But it's a conscious experience. But let's say you're looking at the lamp, and there's the Eiffel Tower in France going on right now. I'm experiencing it. It's not in the realm of your experience. It's not a problem. Like what you're trying. But so I'm saying, don't create attention like the Eiffel Tower in France. You're not experiencing it. It's not the.
It's just a concept.
Yeah, it's just in that moment, the Eiffel Tower is a concept. It's not a conscious experience.
So coming back to the reality, the idea of the subconscious is just a concept. So when you have that thought of the subconscious, actually investigate. What does my body feel like right now? Is it relaxed right now? Nope. Okay, I'll relax it and then we're done. No problems. But the idea of the subconscious can sort of be thought to ruminate on because we don't have any clear evidence of any of it. Like Scott was saying, we don't even have evidence of the subconscious because it's something that we can't see in that concept, right? The subconscious is something that's unable to be accessed.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah. It's magical thinking, as Dhammarato.
Exactly.
Like that's the simplicity of it, is that there's no reality to solve or encounter other than the experience of reality right now. Like there's no other problem to fix. Everything else is a magical superstition. It's not because when you face it, then that will be reality and you'll be encountering that. So it's daunting to try to fix or come to terms with all of the projections of the mind, because the projections of the mind are unending and infinite. You'll never solve those problems, but you can come to terms with the reality of your experience. Coming to terms with the reality of your experience is a doable process. Anyone could do it. Not just you don't have to be a it's not just accessible to the Buddha.
And that's just a concept, even the idea that it's a Buddha, right?
Yeah.
It's just the finger pointing at the moon. Every time we come back to that finger, we just look at the moon and realize, oh, I don't need to be ruminating on these thoughts of the verbal thoughts and the confusing verbal thoughts. Coming back to, I can experience this right now. It's immediate.
Yeah.
That's why everyone is trying to fix the whole world subconsciously, right? They don't even see the problems yet. They're trying to fix the whole world. They don't even see their own yard, their own grass.
They have a concept of the world, and the world is broken, and they're trying to fix that concept rather than their immediate experience. That, in fact, they could be doing more benefit just by smiling and cracking a joke with the person next to them. That would actually be bettering their world, their immediate experience world. That while they're ruminating on the thought of the world is broken, how am I going to fix this? The person right next to them is stressed about the same thing, and they could just crack a joke with each other, and that would be bettering the world, and that's immediate.
That's the tension.
And that's actual change.
That reminds me of the Ramana Maharshi quote, trying to save the world is like trying to cover all the roads and like the entire terrain of the world with leather rather than just wearing leather shoes. And now you can walk around the world. Trying to cover everything, like one is like unrealistic and one is realistic. Like all you have to do is enjoy your own experience. Your own experience is the world.
And by going to work and having a big smile and being a great friend to your boss and coworkers, that is bettering the world, because they'll learn to smile too, and they'll really enjoy that time you cracked a joke with them. And in that moment, they're free of dukkha, and that is bettering the world in that sense. That is what we can do, and that's immediate, and that will have benefits. Whereas the idea of saving the world or doing something to save this concept of the world, that's just a concept. That's a concept of the world that we don't think is doing well. But because we're not actually experiencing the reality of things, we don't know whether it's doing better or not.
Yeah, that's why I said, like, I compared it to relaxing your own tension first, and then you can relax the tension around the environment you're in.
Exactly.
Like the tension in your body, everything just flows by itself.
But even the tension in the environment you're in is only there as a tension that you experience.
Yes.
So relaxing your own tension is the only tension to relax, and the only tension that you actually there is and that you can experience. If you're experiencing tension of those around you, you're experiencing tension of yourself.
Yes, if it makes you feel tense, or that's something that often happens, that someone will come away from a conversation saying that conversation made both of us anxious, where they're saying that because they felt anxious the whole conversation. The other person could have been having a blast and they weren't paying attention to that. So what we need to do first is find the seclusion of our own mind, and that can be just closing our eyes and taking a nice breath, and then we can see the world for how it is.
You're gonna say something, Robert?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, it's like it's all our projections, isn't it? Like the tension we see in other people and situations. It's like it's our. Yeah, I was just agreeing with you.
Well, yeah, the not that other people aren't experiencing tension, but the only tension that you can resolve or relax is an experience, inner experience of tension. So if you're like experiencing tension around other people and saying that's their tension, no, actually you're experiencing tension, and you could relax that, but you can't. So like if you like superimpose your tension, as they may be feeling tension, which is like you're empathetically experiencing, but then there's nothing you can do about it if you say, oh, that's their tension. Oh, now you're doomed to experience tension because it's theirs. But actually, no, you're experiencing that tension, and you could relax that. Do you see what I'm saying? So like if you experience tension around other people experiencing tension and say, oh, it's their tension, not mine, and I can't
control it. I don't have control of my feelings, right? Because they're sympathetically vibrating anxiety, I have to feel anxious, but that's a delusion, because you can smile right now and you don't have to feel anxious.
Yeah, you can relax, completely be relaxed and relax your own tension. You can't relax their tension for them. It might help to be around somebody who's relaxed, and generally that will communicate itself to those who are open to it. But it won't work to people who aren't open to it. But you will be relaxed and enjoying yourself regardless. So it's a win-win situation. like the only person that needs saving is yourself. Like, and there's nothing.
Exactly. And then there's indifference. If the other person's not getting it, you'll be cracking and howling with laughter either way. You'll be satisfied either way.
Yeah. Like there's no you can enjoy the show. Like there's no worries about it. Like you can enjoy the drama of it. All the world's a stage. And people are just playing different characters in the stage. And then some people play the character of being an asshole. But then are you going to become a character who's a victim of the asshole, or are you going to see the whole play and enjoy it?
Thanks.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, I guess the subconscious is kind of an interesting concept because, like, one thing that comes to mind is like, I don't know if this is really worth going into, but like sometimes in spirituality, there's the idea that like even like physical objects are our mental projections, and like if I look at a table, I'm experiencing my idea of the table. I'm not experiencing the table because there's nothing in reality called a table. It's just like particles vibrating or
that's
moving.
an existential viewpoint of whether a table is there or not. It doesn't matter whether a table is there or not. So when I'm saying come into the reality of your own experience, it's not making any claims about the existential nature of reality or whether or not there is or isn't a table. That doesn't matter because you're not.
And we can't know that stuff.
Yeah, so it's not creating a new paradigm of how, like an ontological paradigm. That's not what the Buddha taught. The Buddha taught that there is suffering and there is a cessation to suffering. He didn't teach, oh, there is no table out there that other than the experience of the table. That's a philosophy. It's not a practical truth. It's not a practical there's nothing you can do with it.
It's like a belief. That's
Yeah.
what the Buddha did taught is there is consciousness, and that consciousness, there are 6 sense bases, right? There is seeing, there is touch, there is whatever, and those exist, but we can't say there's something else exists that because of that, either way, that there is or isn't. And oftentimes people will get scared because there isn't a table out there. What's going to happen? My reality is collapsing on me. But really, what is there is just the sense, and then we process that sense. We name it as a table. We recognize it as a table, and then it contacts us as a table, and that's just what happens. There's nothing scary about that. It's just how we relate to the world.
There's probably a fucking table there, if we're going to be honest. It doesn't have to, oh, it's only my idea of a table or my conscious. It doesn't matter, okay? It doesn't matter whether it's only consciousness or a table there.
What we do know is that every time we've interacted with the table, it's been a table, and we can infer from that make the assumption that there's probably some reality out there, but either way, it doesn't matter.
You can enjoy you can enjoy the thought, oh, there is no table, but yet I can put things on it. You can enjoy that thought, or if that thought causes you more dissatisfaction, then just throw it out. It's how you choose to look at it.